Man, I'm telling you guys, it feels really good to get back in the swing of things. It really does. I feel like I enjoy doing this. You guys understand that, right? I really enjoy shooting these videos. I feel like, now that I got a little cast of followers, a good fan base, that I feel like I've left you all behind now for about the last month because I've been overworking on this giant-ass box I just built. Oh, man, it feels good to stand here and shoot these things again. Okay. Let's talk about Mr. D's box. So let's look at Mr. D's note here. I have no idea what's going on with my box. By the way, this is addressed to Mr. Mud Duck. And that's correct. It's Mr. Mud Duck to you. Appreciate you, Mr. D. I really do. I have no idea what's going on with my box. I'm showing watts, but it's like all key, no swing. I think driver pill may be bad. I do not know. If it is not, going to run a lot, maybe a 2-pill, and to put the BBI upgrades on it. Fix it. Any concerns? Or call me before repairs to let me know. And then he says this is in his name. Of course, we folded that away. We're going to censor this. Well, I got to tell you, Mr. D, it wasn't your driver pill. Now, by the way, this is your old driver pill. I'm going to send it back with the amplifier, so it gets to come back home with you, and you might be able to use that in a future project, taking into account that's worth about 40 bucks. Mr. D is one of these guys that gave me a little bit of a hard time, like, where you been? My amp's been there forever. I apologize, Mr. D. I said this in the previous video, and I'm going to keep saying this for about the next 30 videos. I swear to God, I'm sorry for the delay. I've had one project that I've been on non-stop, 24/7, pretty much, and I finally got it figured out. So I had to order some parts. Now I get to do this kind of stuff. Now this amp's actually been done since last week. This is one of the ones where I took it out of the box and did the whole repair beginning to end on Facebook doing the live feed. It's had something like 2,000 views over there already. It was fun. The customer himself was there with us, and we went through the whole process beginning to end. I talked about all the different things I look for, why we're doing this, why we're doing that, and now it's my time to explain it all to you. Not very much leaves here, absolutely zero things actually leave here without having one of these videos shot in some way or another. The private videos I don't do with all the editing over here on a computer and all that other stuff. Yeah, it's a video over there processing. I don't bother with any of that. I shoot it raw usually, throw it up there. That way everybody's got a reference to what's happening. But the reason I did the live feed video is because it's fun. I wanted to come out and talk because I enjoy it. Now, what we did is we hooked the box up, took it out of the box, moved the packing material out of the way, hooked the amp up, and ran it. And we ran it with the 2950. And let's go around the band real quick so we can establish what we got going on. That is a 1,000-watt slug in PEP, 1,000-watt slug in average, 5-watt slug in reverse, back from the Bird 10,000-watt dummy load. And we ran it on the same amount of volts. And what we were doing was a little experiment. Now this is a 1-drive-in-4. It's an older Fat Boy, but it has worked for years and years and years. But when we ran it on the bench with these setups, we're having a hard time getting more than about 700 watts out of it. So what we did, this had a 2290 and now it's got a 2879. So instead of having a 60-watt final in there, or a 60-watt transistor, we replaced it with a 120-watt transistor and gave this a little bit more drive. The first thing I did is I went in here and I want to show everybody. I was like, look, so we did about 750, 780 watts. I went in and I changed this wire and these two wires. That's all I did, was change this wire and these two wires. And that brought us up to 850 watts. So we got about 100 more watts out of the box just by upsizing the gauge of wire. Now, the next thing we did is we went and we changed out this little scoochy wire. Here, let me show you what I mean. Let's get this focused here. We'll get this in frame. Come on. Come on. It's time to be famous there, wire. I'll show you something. Let me grab a piece of wire here. Okay, so not all 8 gauge is the same. I think we all know this. If you go to Walmart or the cheapest wire vendor on Amazon, just because it says 8 gauge on it doesn't necessarily mean it's 8 gauge. Round that around so it's round again. We'll let this focus. Now on the top is my 8 gauge, and on the bottom is the other 8 gauge. You can see that the one on top has got almost double the strands as the one on the bottom. The one on the bottom is the exact same size, but with a thicker insulation jacket to it. This is also nickel-clad copper. So this is oxygen-free copper that has been nickel-plated. When you nickel plate copper, it makes it slightly more resistant to corrosion. So, before, after. Now, 8 gauge is more than adequate. I'm going to go ahead and pitch this. I've had that laying around in a bag for a week since I worked on this last weekend. That little bit of difference in wire gauge, just simply by changing the power wires. Now, the power wires are about this long, okay? So if he was to bring like 4 gauge up to his 8 gauge wires and then use wire nuts or distribution blocks or something and then hook this amp up to it, there probably wouldn't have been such a significant change. But what I had was 8 gauge going to their 8 gauge going to the amplifier from my power source over there. By simply changing the gauge of wire, one, that it was uncut, which makes a huge difference, by the way. So let's not get too far off track, because the power wire that came with this box was adequate. This is an upgrade. Okay, I don't want anybody to get the idea that I'm saying anything other than that. This is an upgrade. So we upgraded your power wire, and by doing that, that brought us up to about 900 watts. And that's with the 2290 in it. So then what we did is we changed the input tune, then we changed the from the driver to the final, we removed these resistors. And we changed this capacitor, and we changed that capacitor, so we have a better tune. The other thing that we did is we also changed out the grommet. The grommet that was in there was this little tiny shallow thing, which had worked its way out. Now, if you don't believe in wire wear, you see that shiny little ring that's on there? It shows up real good here. You see that? It looks like silver paint. That's not. That's actually aluminum from the grommet rubbing against the aluminum cabinet, which if you didn't have a grommet in there would be chewing into the wire. But this thing had worked its way out, and it had just gotten frickin' soft. I mean, it's just the little ears in here just weren't holding in anymore. And when I went to the wire upgrade, we went ahead and put a bigger grommet in there for you. Now, the other thing that we noticed was we went in here, and this coax connector is, well, like that one girl we all used to know in high school. The sides are banged out in it hard. You know what I'm saying? Hot dog down a hallway. You know, drive a Cadillac in there. Just saying. You don't need 2, you need 5 fingers. It's loose. It was loose. It was very, very loose. I used to use these Bakelite connectors quite a bit. I really like Bakelite. It's a very high temperature plastic. But this isn't Bakelite. This is something else. Bakelite's got kind of fiber consistence in it, and it's very, very stiff. The reason I use primarily Teflon anymore is because virgin Teflon, what they make the coax connectors out of it, has a much higher skin dielectric to it. So otherwise it's got a higher insulation property to it than the Bakelite. But this is some kind of simulated Bakelite. I don't know if this is stock or something aftermarket. It doesn't matter. I used to use these quite a bit. I don't use them anymore. As you go forward in technology, things get better. So anyhow, your coax connector was super loose, so we went ahead and slapped a new one of them in there. Let me take the grommet. We're going to throw that away too. Let's get rid of these resistors. Whoop. Don't need to keep these around. Now, when we first pulled the amp out of the box, Mr. D, as you very well know, we sat there and listened to a hunk of ferrite roll around inside the cabinet. Well, when I popped the lid open, this is what we found. This little piece of ferrite had cracked in half. Going to go ahead and throw that away. And what it was the choke that is on the positive wire that feeds the driver section. I don't need this little piece of Teflon anymore. God knows I got enough Teflon around here. I invested enough money like a small bank in a wire company here recently. We replaced that with Stinger, a 10 gauge. And then we went ahead and we dropped in this 2290 or 2879. And with that, we got these as results. Okay, 2950. going to show you some drive. Of course, we've got a 5-watt slug sitting between the 2950 and the 2x4. Audio. About 20 watts worth of drive. Here's our pass-through tune, or otherwise the ability for the radio to run down, go through the input connector, out the output connector, and around to the antenna source, which would be a dummy load in this situation. Hello, hello, audio. Isn't that tuned down nice? Oh, love these little boxes. You don't have to add capacitance here to make it pass through right. There's a little impedance bump there. That's really important to show that in every video, by the way, because that demonstrates to the customer that they are not going to have a problem being able to talk through this box. And if you have a low SWR or a low reflect power going through the amplifier, that means you're also going to have a great receive. If you've ever owned some of the older school amps from the 80s, where guys didn't know how about tuning input and output, and they were using different coax jumpers to do that, different lengths and coax jumpers, which is a whole nother conversation, which is not the way you want to set your box up. You go to slap it in, you can't hear nothing. Well, that's caused by two things. Pass-through tune is shit, or you got dirty contacts. Usually it's dirty contacts, but every once in a while you run across one of these where the pass-through SWR is like a 2 or a 3. Well, you got to think about that little tiny milliwatts worth of signal that are coming down off the antenna, then riding a coax down and trying to come through the amp and then come back up to the receiver end of the radio. Well, if you have a high impedance bump in an outer resonant portion in the circuit that's attached to your antenna, it's the same thing as if you're trying to transmit into a high SWR. It's going to block that RF coming through from your antenna down to your radio. Okay, 20 watts of drive. Variable's all the way open. We're going to turn it on. 14 volts. Ta-da! About 950 to 1,000 watts peak. Ta-da! And about 380 bird. Input tune. Ta-da! Just underneath a 1/2 watt. It's so beautiful. Mr. D, you're done. It's done. It's done and done and done and done. And done again. Now, Mr. D, I've got to get with my vinyl guy. And I got to get new vinyl. But I went ahead and I slapped a sticker on there for you. And we're going to send a couple along with the amp. Is that fan loose? No, it's in there. It's in there pretty tight. I'm going to put the tins on this thing. I'm going to box it up. We're going to send it home. I want you to put this in your work truck, and I want you to key on some people. Now, if you're not seeing a lot of swing with what I've demonstrated here, that probably tells me that you might have something wrong with your radio. You might want to go see Truck CV Sales, or go see our buddy Zane at Big Rig Radio. But let's run our dead key on up here a little bit. Hello. 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 Pulling about 100 amps, making about 1,000 watts. Means the box is within 60 to 70% efficient. Yeah, that's it. Dead key about 100, 100.5, and if it doesn't swing up over towards or around 1,000 watts, we might want to think about doing a little bit something different on that radio. Anyhow, Mr. D, that's it. I'm out of here. I'm done. I'm moving on, going on to the next thing. Out the door towards your direction, generally. Gentlemen, I appreciate you all watching. I appreciate you all checking in, seeing what I got going on. No, I'm not dead. No, I'm not going out of business. No, I couldn't quit even if I wanted to. I got too much work, and I really enjoy what I do. So, I'm back. Back again. BBI's back. Tell your friends. And of course, if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to click the little bell down there. That way you get alerted every single time I put one of these little piece of mastership porn videos out for everybody to enjoy. And I'm going to do the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Gentlemen, my name is BBI. Without a shadow of a doubt, I am the biggest mud duck in Idaho. Come check us out. Facebook, Twitter, and of course, www.bbiamps.com. See you, gentlemen. Click, click, bump, bump.